Chelsea Stalling Whittington is a native of Gary, Indiana, and a proud graduate of Westside High School, where she graduated as a salutatorian. Howard University, where she received her BA in Broadcast Journalism, magna cum laude, and Purdue University, where she received her MA in Organizational Communities, summa cum laude. Since 2015, Chelsea has operated her own PR consulting firm, WHITT, where she develops public relations and social media strategies for clients, as well as presents workshops and training on social media and public speaking. In spring of 2019, she made the big leap into full-time entrepreneurship while expanding her clientele to service small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and governmental agencies. Ryan Thiel is a seasoned sales and marketing executive with over 25 years of experience driving revenue growth and brand success in both business-to-business and retail markets. Ryan has a deep understanding of market dynamics, consumer behavior, and strategic business development. With a proven track record of leading high-performing teams, launching innovative marketing campaigns, and forging strong partnerships, Ryan is engaged and forward-thinking and marketing professional.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for that introduction. Jennifer, thank you so much for the invitation, which I received last November. Love great planners. And here we are today, March 27th, which is exactly 3 days from my 6-year anniversary as a full-time entrepreneur, March 30th, which is also my birthday. So I'm so excited to be here to share information. Except for your school people. I am here, and I also want to acknowledge my colleague. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm interested in hearing everything that you have to say. We are going to tackle today's discussion from 2 separate angles around paid media versus how you just kind of grassroots and earn your media from your work. And I'm going to start that discussion telling you a little history about my company, and then fast forward to today. It was about age 9 when my mother said you should go into PR. And certainly at 9, I didn't know what PR was nor what it stood for. But she said, you're the youngest, but you're always advocating for your siblings about why we should have McDonald's and not have Sunday dinner, and why they shouldn't go to Red Lobster when I made the honor roll if they didn't make the honor roll, those kinds of things. And she said, you're always spin a story to make people follow you. And I thought about it, and I still didn't realize it until much later at Howard University, where I had an internship at the Peace Corps recruiting office. It was my first interface with public relations. I wrote my first press release at age 19, and from there I fell in love with helping people fall in love with brands. I did attend Purdue University, Calumet, which is now Purdue Northwest, and received my master's in organizational communication. It was my plan to return to Washington. However, my mother was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which many of you know is one of the most rarest forms of bone cancer that is a 1 in a million chance of contracting. And so I stayed in the area to be with family. And then she passed on actually 24 years ago yesterday. So I'm a ball of emotions between birthdays and remembering people who have an impact on my life and my business. But I feel compelled to share with you what motivates you to excel your brand. And it's the people who raise and mold you and encourage you in good times and bad. And she was indeed one of them. And she did live to see me live out that dream of moving into PR. I'm also a professor at Indiana University Northwest. Sorry, Purdue, Katie. I've been there 25 years. And I love my space there in that I teach seniors about using computers, social media, so that the digital divide does not grow any wider than it already is. And I empower them and arm them with the information that their grandchildren skip over and just say, give me your phone, I'll do it for you. So if you're ever interested in that, 55 and older, we're over at IU Northwest. PR, public relations, has changed from my times when I started at the Lake Area United Way in the 90s, we had a fax machine, and I was excited about the broadcast fax feature, where I was able to send out my press release to 20 people at a time. And then came social media and email marketing and websites, and I knew that I had to change the trajectory of my career, whether it was 9 to 5 or entrepreneurship. I will share with you that I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I fought it for decades because I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My parents owned gas stations in Gary, and I saw how hard my father worked as an entrepreneur, working on cars, renting U-Hauls, Blimpie Sub and Sally's car wash. Hey, Daddy, he's 94, so he'll probably watch this later when he wakes up. But entrepreneurship was not necessarily my path of choice, because if your feet don't hit the ground and you get out there and get your work done, it doesn't happen. But I now recognize that all the roles that I held prior to prepared me for such a time as this. So to all of my fellow entrepreneurs who are here today or under the sound of my voice, I want to remind you that no two paths are the same, and that the way you build your brand should be inserted with your personality, character, passions, and beliefs. And that's how WHITT was born. My last name is Whittington. Thank you, husband, for giving me a catchy name. And my tagline is, who you with? And so I have approximately 70 to 80 different clients that I service at any given time, providing general public relations services, email marketing, social media strategy development, coverage of their events, and I also have an arm of my company titled WHITT University. I find a lot of times that my clients want to learn how to do what we do so they don't have to pay me over and over, and I get it. You know, we have different budgets and different objectives, and so we craft and customize courses for clients and the community so that they can learn how to develop effective social media content, how to speak in public in venues like this, how to book themselves, and of course, how to show up on television and radio in their media interviews. I will also say that having strong writing skills has also been a part of the success of the company, in that we know that individuals get their information differently, whether it be newspaper, email, social media, LinkedIn, all those different types of platforms require different types of writing. So I know I'm here today to share a few tips, and that's one of my tips today, is that there's no one-size-all-fits-all for marketing and branding when it comes to attracting your audiences. We have to meet them where they are. So my second tip would be to get you a millennial. Raise your hand, Tamaya. I have several. And we complement one another on our team, all of the young ladies and gentlemen who work with me, in that I'm able to instill in them the old school principles of public relations, the importance of ethics, and embodying the voice of your client to ensure that you're properly representing their brand. And then they add on what's new, what's trending, how we do Instagram reels and bells and whistles that make the brand shine, but never forgetting good old-fashioned writing and not leaning on AI for your content, but merely as an inspiration at this point. We know that that's another type of technology that's coming, that's here. And so in my field, we are definitely deciding how we use it best, but still making sure that we are embracing good old-fashioned public relations. My company started in 2019 full-time, and if you do the math, less than a year later, there was COVID. And I was very, very concerned about how it would impact my business. But surprisingly enough, and thankfully enough, my business actually quadrupled during COVID, in that individuals were looking for ways to reach their audiences because we couldn't meet in person anymore. So Zoom was the thing. Email marketing was the thing. All things that were electronic and digital to get our names out there became the norm, which made me motivated to create opportunities for my clients that others may not necessarily be offering. The way that I measure my success is when I first started to do this business, and my husband, I worked for so many brands, Ebony and Jet magazines, like Gary United Way, Boys and Girls Club, City of Gary, Gary Community School Corporation, and I had maxed my amount of friends on Facebook. And my husband, he's not much of a social media person. He'll glance every once in a while and he says, who really has 5,000 friends? And what are you all talking about? Is anybody making money? And this was years back, and I thought about it, and I said, well, yeah, I'm just keeping up with family and friends and looking at pictures and making sure everybody's okay and just being happy on social. He said, there's got to be more to this, and if you're gonna be on there, you probably wanna monetize it. And from there, the seed was planted, and I began to plan how I was gonna reach and branch out on my own. From there, it was all systems go, but again, I wanted to distinguish and differentiate myself and my services. And I will share with you that social media is not the only way to reach your audiences. And that's something that we're getting caught up in, to think that if I post it, then I'm covered. You are not, okay? There's one slice of the pie that people will get online, and even if they do, there's no 100% guarantee that they will see your content. And you have to always act and move in that way to know that you are reaching all of your intended target audiences. We still have individuals who want to walk out to the mailbox and get a newspaper, open it up and read it like we did when we were growing up. And then we have others who only get their information on X, or they only go to LinkedIn or Facebook. So my advice is to meet your clients where they are. If they tend to, and I'm sure my colleague will talk more about the numbers, but if they tend to skew a little older, you may look at the platforms where our more senior individuals get their information. If your target market skews younger, then make sure you have a presence on those platforms to ensure that they get your information. And then I would say, follow up, repetition, repetition, repetition. On average, it takes about 10 times for something to really sink in. So don't be discouraged when someone says, I didn't know your business existed. I've never heard of you. It just means that they're probably only on their third iteration of being introduced to your brand, and that no sooner than they tell you they haven't heard of you, that's when they'll see your billboard, or that's when they'll get an email from you and say, now it's starting to click. So when we talk about strategies for getting your brand out there, I will share with you what has been my business' biggest success, and it was not one that I intentionally put in my plan, but it happened organically. I mentioned that I worked for a variety of brands over the past 25 years, and over those years, I solidified strong relationships. I want to shout out a blast from the past. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lou Martinez. Lou Martinez was the president of the Lake Area United Way in the 90s. He was very passionate about raising money on behalf of nonprofit organizations. And at the ripe age of 23, he gave me the opportunity to be his director of marketing and communications. I didn't know what I was doing. I was fresh out of grad school and really still in grad school. So I took a part-time job at the Times to try to learn how to lay out and make sure my writing was tight. I wanted to do everything to ensure that I was building the right brand for a United Way. And here I am, 30-something years later, still making sure I'm building the right brand for each and every one of my clients. So my success in all the jobs that I held, I kept those relationships, but I kept those emails. So if somebody here who's contemplating leaving the job or you're moving on, don't forget to download your contacts. They belong to you. Anyone who has emailed you and is in your address book, that's your network. And so never leave your network behind when you're moving forward, whether it be for more job opportunities or if you're looking later to branch out to become an entrepreneur. So when I took a look at all of the different databases that I downloaded over the years, my database numbered 6,000 people. And I said, you know, I'm gonna start off by telling these 6,000 people that I've opened my business. And I spent the past 6 years, and I'm gonna do it today, collecting email addresses and information from colleagues and individuals who potentially want to hear about my business and the businesses of my clients. Today I have roughly 31,000 subscribers to my content. And so I'm able to leverage that network by pushing out information on behalf of my clients. And I'm here to encourage you that you can do the same thing on a platform of your choice, whether it's Constant Contact or some other type of email marketing, but do not disregard the power of email. Social media is definitely a part of the puzzle, but emails come directly to you. You can save them, you can print them, you can forward them, you can unsubscribe, you can delete, you can share, and you can go back to it if you decide, okay, I'm not going to participate this time, but I'm going to hold this information and reach out to the company or the individual a little bit later. And that's what I have basically become known for. Between that and my general public relations and crisis communications, I'm proud to say that we have found our niche at WHITT PR for marketing and branding. The last piece before I pass it over to my colleague is about crisis communications. As my father would always tell me about money, he said, rainy days are coming, so always make sure that you save. Same thing with PR in your companies, whether it be the market, whether it be some type of trend. Every day is not going to be sunny and rosy for your brand. And so do you have a plan in place or a method by which you address those problems that may be occurring within your industry or within your brand proper? Perfect example, I was teaching a class last Thursday evening, like I normally do over at the Hammond Development Corporation, and my phone continued to buzz till I finally took a look at it, only to find out that a tornado had hit one of our schools in the Gary Community School Corporation, which I represent. Jumped immediately into crisis mode, concluded my class, but then went straight to the school to address all of the media and, of course, powwow with the superintendent and other leaders about what this means for us and the substantial damage. And even as we speak, I'm thinking about it now because when I leave, I need to join my team again to talk about the next steps for the young people who have been displaced and staff as a result of this tragedy. And I share these things with you. One, the children are okay, no one was hurt. We're gonna get a new gym roof, which is a blessing. And we have a plan for our young people. But I say this to you to always have that in your mindset, that what's the plan when your brand does not perform or execute the way you anticipated, or something that happens in the world impacts your brand. And that's one of the things that we do as a firm. I will stop here because I certainly want to have time for them to ask us questions after, because that's where the real conversation starts, because each one of you has a different path with different goals, and we here at WHITT PR are happy to help. We're happy to come out and speak, conduct classes and workshops with your employees or you one-on-one if you have a big interview coming up. And I also just want to acknowledge my Lord and Savior, as I am a believer, that my success is credited to him and the support of my amazing husband and family. And please join me in welcoming my colleague, Brian.
That's a hard one to follow. I don't know what I need this. Thank you. That was great. That was great. You actually reminded me of something from when I first got started in the 90s when you said the fax machine. You were excited to send out one. Yeah. I remember getting signed proposals and thinking, wow, this is great. We don't have to get it in the mail, you know. So I guess I'm going to approach this conversation from definitely the digital paid side of marketing online. One of the pillars that would come alongside of everything we just heard from Chelsea. And so I really wanted to approach it from a in the trenches but top line view to give you guys knowledge and hopefully meeting you where you're at with that in the current situation at your business. So, you know, when you think about digital marketing, it sounds fancy, but it's basically based on, similar to what Chelsea had said, traditional marketing ideas and procedures. So just starting out, strategy. So when you sit down and you think about, like, what are we trying to do here? It really starts with your strategy. And if you miss this piece, generally it won't end well for you. So questions are, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we driving leads for new service, more items through, we're trying to sell more through e-com, grow awareness to our company? Like, what is really the goal? And then what are the campaign like KPIs? How are we going to judge success? When we get to the back end of this, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is, how do we judge success? It's establishing at least those base KPIs on the front end in the strategies that you can find at the end, okay, we were successful or we won't. And you may end up, depending on the length of the campaign, adding KPIs, changing KPIs, but you should always have that base KPI idea of what we're going for. And then in the strategy, who is our target audience? And I think a lot of people miss this one. It's, they throw out a demographic, whatever, 35 to 55. I'm a big believer in really nailing that demographic and building a profile around it. Are they female? Are they male? Geographically, where are they? Household income, and really understanding them. Maybe even coming up with a picture that represents that person. And this is who we're targeting. So is our customer a business owner, end consumer, homeowner? And obviously that would all depend on, that first question, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, who are we selling to? Then what platforms fit that demographic? LinkedIn to TikTok is a big jump, and if you don't know who you're selling to, you might be just spending money on a platform that you're not really talking to your consumer or your customer. So nailing that is a big deal. This is another one that a lot of people really miss. How are we engaging with that consumer? Is it through desktop? Is it through mobile? Tablet's still out there, but it's a pretty small piece. I can't tell you how many clients I work with that everything is through the desktop. And what they don't realize is that 76% or whatever the number is of their buyer is engaging them through this right here. And they miss that piece. So stuff isn't working correctly. It's not displaying the way it needs to happen. That sales funnel, that flow through is not happening because they're anticipating a desktop view. So strategy, does the campaign scope and budget, the return, align with your KPIs? It's another thing people miss is you're not going to nail the numbers exactly, but before you launch a campaign, you can definitely come up with an idea of what we're projecting as far as impressions. So as impressions, everybody's probably heard this, is what we see, like how many people see it, right? Well, from impressions, there's math that you can generate down to a projection of return on investment based on how many people are going to see this, how they flow through the sales funnel, and actually end up hitting the KPI. So let's just use an easy one. We're selling a widget online, We should be able to project based on a spend, a time frame, what platform, geographically, our demographic, what our return on investment is, and adjust our budget correctly. If you're not doing that ahead of time, it doesn't make sense to wait to find out on the back end, oh my goodness, we didn't make any money or we just broke even. You should be able to do that on the front end. And there's math that does that. How are we tracking success? This is another one that it kind of blows my mind sometimes when I start working with clients. Maybe it's just Google Analytics, but we haven't looked at that in 2 years. Having all our analytics in place before we launch and understanding everything is firing correctly, and it's measuring the KPIs we actually want to measure, whether that's phone calls, form submissions, whatever it is, sales. Making sure that all those ducks are in a row and everything's up and running. So now I'm going to switch to creative. This is a big area. It's kind of my forte. I was graphic design major coming out of Purdue University. Yeah. So I was an entrepreneur as well, or am, and so my first foray was I launched a creative agency in St. John, Indiana in the late 90s. I don't remember the exact time frame. And did creative mainly for home builders and commercial builders in this region. So this is kind of a space I'm really comfortable in. But so what does the ad look like? And here's another thing a lot of people miss. And that comes back to that demographic and strategy. But it's thinking about like images, words, and colors that are used in that ad that would align with the demographic. So Wrong image. I just wrote this down. Landscaper showing lineup of company equipment. How many have seen us? You know, like they're proud of their equipment. It's a huge investment. I get it. The consumer doesn't care. They just want a nice looking landscaping job, right? So they're going to expect you to have that equipment. So maybe it's a picture of a really well done, you know, hardscape or whatever the situation is. And these are based on experiences I've had. So this is a great one. Wrong words. I once worked with a like a hardware, you know, shop. I'll say blowout sale on toilets. And I said, I don't know if that's the correct combination of words to sell toilets. And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't even think about that. So what are the words that we're using? And are those the words that communicate with the market we're after, the demographic? You had mentioned a millennial. I mean, that makes sense. Like, you're going to speak differently to a millennial versus a Gen X and use different words. Creative. So on click, where are we sending the user? This is another one. I keep saying this is a huge one. I can't even tell you how many Fortune 1,500 companies, you see this great ad campaign, and I naturally get sucked into this stuff because it's what I do. You click it, and it dumps you on their homepage, and it says nothing about the ad. The offer's not there, the colors aren't the same, and you left the user to just like, now it's my responsibility to dig through your website and find that product that I was looking for. So you definitely wanted that carry through. That's part of that funnel where you're building that landing page, and it's native to the user to click over, see that, and it works. It all works together. And then it's the obvious next step. So it depends on what the funnel is, but let's say, again, we're trying to get somebody to buy that widget on a Facebook ad, and it's buy now. When we come to the landing page, we don't necessarily want to just reiterate everything that was just in the ad. They know that. We want to go to the next step. How many features does it have? What colors does it come in? And then down the sales funnel. So just an authentic conversation, and a lot of people miss that. Give me 1 second. Yeah, clear call to action. This is big too. CTA, so buy now, get an estimate. A lot of people miss that. It's just like, oh, contact. Like, what do we really want them to do? So a clear call to action. And then, so now we're launching in the ads, the campaign's running wherever, whatever platforms they are, multiple. So after a few days of collecting data, review if outcomes are what was expected. A lot of people go to sleep on this. They launch a campaign, let it run for a month, and don't look at it, and that's a huge mistake. Sometimes ads actually will turn off, and people aren't even aware of it. They're 30 days in and realize, holy cow, this ad hasn't run in 2 weeks. So, well, why? Why is that? You know, I don't know if anybody remembers, and it's still going on, like Google privacy laws last year, they wanted identification. I had a client that we were aware of it, and we were telling them, we need your driver's license, we need your EIN number, we need this information. And they're busy, I get it, didn't get back to us. Guess what? The ads turned off. When we got to the end of the year and we were doing our assessment for the year, we were down a percentage, and we attributed it to that, whatever it was, 4 weeks that we lost those ads out there because we didn't have it. Credit cards expire. I mean, that happens. If that's what's on account at Meta or wherever you're working with, the ad stops. So being in touch with your campaigns. And then reporting. This is a huge one. I'm actually just finished working with a client, and there was multiple agencies involved. And I found out at the end I was the only one that reported, or Via, not me, Via was the only one that reported. And I was kind of blown away by that and said, you know, I can't believe you're spending money with folks and there's no, essentially, report card at the end. So reporting on what the expectations that you set in the beginning, like those KPIs and everything we've kind of talked through. And if you're not doing that and understanding it, and if you're working with a consultant or agency expecting a detailed conversation on that, I don't know how you would make better decisions the next time around. I think you're just throwing money out the window. So detailed reporting at the end of your campaigns is essential based on those KPIs and any other things that came up throughout the process of the campaign. That's my spiel, folks.
I think it's Q&A time, but before we do that, I did want to add one other item that you triggered for me around that social media marketing. Make sure you have somebody on deck to monitor the inboxes, the comments. That's also part of the reporting,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And you can have a negative reply or something profane just sitting out there on your page and no idea. And you know what that says to me, the consumer? That you're not paying attention to detail. Like, I'm looking on your page and I see these negative remarks and banter or random other people on your feed, advertising, trolls. And if you don't have anybody to go back, and sometimes it's after the campaign, you still have to kind of monitor those alerts and then be consistent and responsive. I'm always telling my clients they have to be responsive. It's that one inbox that could turn into the contract of a lifetime that you didn't check, or nobody on your team checked until weeks later. So if you're going to venture out and have this presence on all these platforms, make sure you have the controls in place to monitor that presence, respond, apologize when necessary. I have a client who has a restaurant, and how many of you know how hard that is? Everybody has, oh, the soup wasn't hot enough, or I waited 10 minutes longer than I normally did. There are always those different replies and praises. And so you want to be aware of both the good and the bad to ensure that you are really interacting with your clients. And the other thing I will say is it's okay to be corny. Corny makes you memorable. I can't tell you how many rooms I walk into now and it's just, who you with? It just screams out of the corner, and then it lets me know that's my account where I'm measuring my numbers. I'm like, they know my tagline. That's a start, you know? And having different things that you can leave behind, your swags, which I have some swag for you today, to freshen up your brands with your air freshener. That's corny, but it's something that's gonna dangle in your face from your rearview mirror if you decide to put it up. It smells good, and then you'll remember that you got it from me. It's those little things that we can't forget about that are more grassroots and tangible, that build relationships, to say we met, I remember you, versus I saw your post. So if you don't remember anything else, work very hard to develop meaningful relationships and not just look at it as an account that generates this amount of money. My clients are my friends, they are my confidants, they are my mentors, and they are people that I respect and want to do my best for. When you develop those types of relationships, that's how I feel you get better results when it comes to building your brand. And so I'll turn it over to the facilitator. Is it our sponsor? Are you facilitating Q&A? Ms. Beacon? I'm just trying to get you back on camera. Questions?
Matt?
Yeah.
You got it?
So I'm considering paying for a QR code generator so that we can have the data on, you know, is it the poster that people are seeing? Is it the mailer that they're getting in their, you know, where is it digital? Like, do you have a recommendation on a paid versus free? Because I know a lot of the free ones don't provide that data.
So it's funny you bring this up because I'm actually going through this right now. I don't have a good recommendation because the one I'm currently using, I'm not happy with, and I'm currently in the process of reviewing new ones.
Yeah.
But it's a great place to be, and another way you can use it and get the value out of it is building your review funnels with QR codes. So I don't know, like, if it's a sales rep situation or what it is, but if you can get a QR code for your Google reviews and place that in places that your customer's happy with you in that moment, like the checkout. You're the YMCA.
Yep.
Somebody signs up, they're excited about you, right?
Right.
That QR code should be right there. Positive review. This was a great experience. So you want to control where you put the QR code for the reviews, but that's another way you can get value out of it. Unfortunately, though, to answer your question specifically, I don't have a name I can drop for you because right now I'm searching for that as well.
Okay.
Does anybody?
Yeah, would Google Analytics Universal Tracking Code Management be able to identify an individual link with each QR code where it's shared?
Yeah, absolutely, and the platform itself will tell you. you can assign, depending on what you're doing with it, it's hard to kind of just say for a catch-all, but let's just use a sales rep situation or a realtor situation. If you're working with a group of realtors, you could assign that each realtor gets their own QR code, and then it's easy to track it that way, but you could do it through Google as well. And the nice thing about the paid services is the difference between dynamic and static QR codes. You already kind of referenced it. Dynamic through the paid service, and there might be free out there, I don't know. You can change the QR code on the back end, but let's say you have a printed piece with it on it. If you change that back end QR code dynamic, it'll still work. If it's static, once you change it, you're done. So it's a lot harder to manage it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me have a response. So, shout out to a meeting we had last year when we talked about the AI, because that actually took me to another level when it comes to like the digital marketing, because I started looking into like the QRs, and I discovered a lot of free platforms out there, like literally like ChatGPT, but hope guide you in that right direction. So it is like free services like what he was mentioning. I do have a list. I have to look at my phone or my email. I can give it to you, but because I utilize that, we utilize that to track like the analytics in our organization, so I can now see when our first year apprentices scan this QR code. Like he said, on the back end, you can create whatever you want to create on the questions in it, and I can keep track of that. And like she said, you have to have somebody that keeps track of it, because the sky's the limit with it. Like I can see how much involvement I have with the first year apprentices or the retirees, or the retirees have questions, or I can utilize it to help come up with ideas when it comes to our contract negotiations or whatever it is. But it is a lot of resources out there, but ChatGPT, I promise you, will help guide you in the right direction. And consider looking into like the paid version of ChatGPT, because that'll help also give you access to a lot more, because ChatGPT will create a QR code for you. You don't have to pay for a service. I don't even pay for services for the QR codes that I create. So I can get with you after this meeting and we can talk about it more.
Chat GPT, our new best friend. Any other questions? No. Thank you so much to both of you. Let's give them both a round of applause for some great information today. Also, let's